Hi everyone, this is Gail. Welcome to my channel. This is National Plan for a Vacation Day, and we're going to do just that. We're going to talk about some things that affect disabled travelers. So if you have a disability or if you're traveling with someone who has a disability, this live stream should help you because we're going to talk about accessible travel and disabled travel and traveling with disabilities. And we're going to base this on my experience, both as a disabled person and as someone who has had experience in the travel industry since around 1990. So it's been a while. So I'm answering some questions like, can you travel with diabetes and how to travel if you have asthma? Can you travel if you have seizures and how do you do that? And just how to travel with a disability in general and how to travel with a mobility disability. So if you all have questions, drop those over in the chat box. And we're going to talk about this for just a little while. And if we need to, we'll do a second stream later. White 2-Pack is in the house. How are you, White 2-Pack? Good to see you. And we have Thomas Moore's Trains. So good to see you also. Good to see you both. So we're diving into this topic because it is National Plan for Vacation Day. So why do we have National Plan for Vacation Day? Well, that's because this is a good time to plan your next travel experience because it's winter, and winter is generally a time that, it's kind of boring. The sun's not out that much. We may have a lot of snow, and it's just a good time to do that travel planning. It makes us a little bit more optimistic whether we actually get to go on the trip or not. So those are some really good reasons. The other big reason for having it in January is because there are a lot of companies that want their employees to submit their vacation requests as soon as possible. So that's why we're talking about it here in January. A lot of things go into it. Now, okay, wow. We have got Thomas Moore's Train has a 3D printed Union Pacific number 844. Is the 844 model is the same as the real one. So, wow, that is so cool. So very, very cool. So, okay, we're going to kind of dive in on the top here. This is based on my experience. I have a mobility disability, severe asthma. I have food allergies. I'm a diabetic, and I have a seizure disorder, a mild traumatic brain injury, and more. Scary stuff, a little bit. So what you have to do, or what I've had to do, is just get beyond the denial and integrate those and figure out what I need to have successful travel experiences. Because it can be a little challenging, right? So any travel experience can be challenging, but more things come into play when you have a disability or when you're traveling with someone that has a disability. Now, there are all kinds of disabilities out there, from blindness, hearing, illnesses, Asperger's. So that gives you lots of reasons also to plan ahead. That's really the biggest thing that I can talk to you about and encourage you to do is plan ahead, and that's another reason for National Plan for Vacation Day. So let's talk road trips first. Despite my challenges, I have driven road trip from Virginia to Alaska and from Tennessee to Alaska And I have been on the Alaska Highway 8 times now. It's a long trip, but there's some things to keep in mind. When I first started looking at it, I was like, what could I do to be successful on the trip? So, number one thing was my cell phone. Even before I went and talked to the doctor about the trip, I made sure that the cell phone that I have was on a network that worked in good old Canada and in Alaska. This is hugely important because if you need help, then you have to have the communication tool, right? So I looked around at the various plans that were available. Google Fi is the one that I chose, and they have a simple plan, and it's pretty much everything that you can even think of. Now, Google Fi also had the best service through Canada of any cell phone I have had. I have had Straight Talk, which doesn't work there at all. I have had Verizon. What else have I had? Straight Talk, Verizon, AT&T. I've done that twice. I picked up a phone in Canada on their network, and that was great for going through Canada, but didn't help me at all when I was going through on into Alaska. So Google Fi also had the best price. And I pay around $70 a month. Let me just pull that up and double check that. Yeah, $70.72 per month. Now, in addition to that, I also upgraded my phone. That's because I just wanted to. I figure if I'm getting a new cell phone plan, it's also a good time to get a new phone. So just to show you, this is what I pay, and that includes the plan, which is only $50 a month. But I got the device, and I'm paying $8.29 per month for that. And I got the protection on it because y'all know I'm always dropping things. And then by the time they got the taxes and the fees and everything on that, it came to $72 a month. But the base price that you see there is $50. Now, this was a really easy switch, and it worked out great for me. And they have the different plans to fit just about every budget. But the big thing about this is it included going to Canada. And there are other countries that it does as well. And I'm going to put an affiliate link down there to help you all out in case you're looking at changing plans. I've been really, really pleased. Oh, wow. Thomas Moore uploaded a short on the 3D printed train. So you all go check that out. It's Thomas Moore's Trains, okay? So check it out after the live stream, though, right? Because you're going to want to see the live stream. So the next thing is go talk to your doctor. Let your doctor help you decide what you need while you're traveling, whether you are taking a road trip or whether you are flying. Go over all of your medications with your doctor. See if any are going to need refills while you're on the trip. And if they do, ask your doctor to handwrite a prescription so you won't be someplace away from the pharmacy that you use having to transfer a prescription among different time zones. Let me tell you, if you're in Alaska, for example, and you're 4 hours away from the East Coast, it can be crazy trying to get prescriptions called in. So a paper prescription alleviates that problem because what they wind up doing is leaving messages back and forth, and it just gets crazy. I use a national pharmacy, Walgreens. You can use CVS, whoever you want to, but still make sure you get those paper prescriptions because even if you use a national pharmacy, things can go wrong in their system, and you don't want to have that happen. So paper prescriptions alleviates all of that, and it gives you some ideas of things to keep in mind on your trip that you might not have thought of. Very important. Next thing, look at where you want to go and find out if it is disability friendly. If you're going to a national park and you have your heart set on seeing a particular thing, you may have to be on a trail that's not necessarily paved well, or it may have rocks on it. So call and ask. If you can't tell from looking at the website, call and check with them. Find out if it's friendly. Now, if you're going to go someplace like Walt Disney World, you don't have to worry about it too much because they cater to people who have disabilities. So when you get to Walt Disney World, you want to go to guest services and talk with them, and they'll give you all kinds of information based on what your disability might be. Also, affordability is just, it's huge, right? Well, check and see if they have any kind of discount for a second person to go with you. Some places do. I know Biltmore House, for example, over in North Carolina, used to have, and hopefully still do, used to have a discount where a disabled person could go for a certain amount and the person with them, you didn't have to pay. If you're flying Alaska Airlines and you have their credit card, you don't have to always pay for a companion. So check those things out. Also, you want to make sure if you're going to an amusement park or Biltmore, do they have ADA shuttles to take you from the parking lot to where you need to go? And if they don't, what are the provisions? If you need to rent a mobility scooter, you want to know that before you get there because they're not always available, or you may have to go outside to a third party to be able to rent a mobility scooter. And when you rent it, before you leave the place, the rental company, or before they leave after it's being delivered to you, make sure the batteries are charged. I know they're going to tell you that the batteries are charged, but just double check it because sometimes things fall through the cracks. This is not one of the times that you want anything to fall through the cracks. So double check it. So you're going to pick your location carefully. You're going to look at what your disabilities are, and you're going to want to look at what they offer, like we just talked about. So your physical needs are hugely important because everything else relies on that. So plan where you're going to be going, plan what you'd like to do, and then figure out what you need to do to be able to do that. Okay. If they have a transportation representative, if you're going, for example, to New York City and you want to ride the subway, you can check with their transportation representatives when you get there and find out what tips and suggestions they can make. Now, last time I went to New York City, they had half price for disabled passengers if you went on an off-peak time. I would not have known that if I hadn't checked once I got there. It's huge because every dollar saved saves you. It just helps. It just helps. Brain fart, I forgot what I was going to say after that. So work with me here. So talk to a transportation representative. Also consider how much time are you going to need on the trip? Because you want to make sure that you have adequate time because it always takes longer than you think it's going to. You may tell yourself, oh, I spend a lot of time sitting, so I don't have any problem with being in a car for 12 hours on a road trip. But you may be sitting at home, but you're also going to be getting up, getting something to drink, walking around, walking to the bathroom, and you can't really do that easily when you're inside of a vehicle, especially if someone else is driving. So plan to have extra stops and figure out realistically when you're at home, how much time do you spend at a restaurant? How much time do you spend, eating breakfast or lunch at home and what that looks like, and start paying attention to those things so that when you plan your vacation, you already know that if it takes you about 3 hours a day, let's just say, for eating and, going in and out and doing a restaurant and things like that, then you know that you need to add 3 hours onto your daily itinerary. So you may be fine with spending 12 hours in a car, but add that other 3 hours and you've just made it 15. Drawing on that example, plan your road trip, plan it ahead of time, and add an extra day at least if you can. And it's always a good idea to do that anyway, because you don't know what's going to come down the pike when you're on the road. So allow for that, but it starts by paying attention to what you usually do. So think about it. Now, when you get your itinerary figured out and you have an estimate of the amount of time that you're going to need, then you need to decide who at home you're going to give a copy of your itinerary to. We don't always like to share our vacation plans, and I get that. I totally get that. But when you're traveling and you have a disability, leaving an itinerary at home gives them a starting point. So if something comes up, and let's say you're stuck on the road for 3 hours or whatever, then they know roughly where you are. Something else I like to do, going back to the cell phone here, is I have Google location sharing set for specific people, and they know where I am at all times. And I have been known to have a phone call from my husband saying, hey, you've been at this rest stop for like 4 hours. Are you okay? And I go through and like, yeah, I ate lunch. I walked the dog. I fed the dog. And now I'm taking a nap. And thank you very much for waking me up. So those things, it matters. There's also been a time in my life where I had Google location sharing set. My husband called and said, hey, I see you're on a back road. Do you know you're heading for the heart of a forest fire and that there are roads closed in front of you? And I'm like, whoops. So and Google location sharing is just part of Google Maps. It's free. It only takes a few minutes. And play around with the other settings on your phone. This one also has some safety stuff so that if I shake it a certain way, it will automatically send an emergency alert to my husband and short clips so he can see and hear what's going on. The other thing that I have is crash detection. So if I'm on my road trip and I'm involved in a motor vehicle accident, my cell phone automatically asks me if I'm okay. And if I don't answer or if I say no, it will automatically call 911 and it lets my husband know or whoever you have set to receive the information, they'll know. Also, they have the GPS coordinates on where you are. Case in point, my daughter and I were talking. She was on speakerphone. She was stopped at a red light. We're having a short conversation and she gets rear-ended. Because she had Google location sharing set, I was able to call her husband and make sure he saw the alert and tell him exactly where she was. He got there around the same time as some of the emergency vehicles did. She didn't need them except for the police for the report, but it was really, really helpful in that situation. That's why I do it when I'm on a road trip traveling. Discounts, we've already kind of talked about. See, I made a note. Something that you want to do as far as notes are concerned is to get you a little notebook. Now, I picked this up at the Dollar General store quite some time ago. When I travel, I have all kinds of notes that I take on trip ideas. I have notes about whether my various destinations were disability friendly or not, what restaurants were disability friendly, which ones weren't, the ones that I stopped at. And I have all of this in my little book. Then when I come home, it's just because I'm me, I go into my Google Drive and make more notes so I know what's going on next time I go to plan for a vacation. Now, you laugh and think, oh, well, isn't that overkill? But the answer is no, it's not. Not if you travel frequently, because one of the things that we noticed when we're traveling, my husband and I, is we weren't getting to the destinations like we thought we should. And I had gone through and looked at what our daily time was for different things. And I thought I had everything, all figured out. But then I realized that we were taking extra time at rest areas, a little bit more than I thought. So going back and looking at that, looking at my notes, looking at what I had on my notes in Google Drive, and I'm gonna share this with you, so don't worry. Looking at those notes on Google Drive, I was able to see how much time I'm spending at various places. So my next trip, I had a better idea of how much time to allow. And that takes a lot of stress off, a whole lot. So I don't have to worry as much anymore about being late to wherever I have reservations. Going back to discounts here for just a minute, state parks and national parks are great for discounts. And I've even got my notes. In Tennessee state parks, they have a disability discount of 25%. Now, that is for camping and fees. The state parks in general there don't have any kind of entrance fees, but you have a 20% disability discount that you can tap into. There's also state employees and state residents and so forth. If you were going to go to a national park and you have a disability, if you do not have the national park's access card, you really should get one. They're free, okay? You just go in. This is where going to the doctor also helps, because it helps to have a note from your doctor. But you just go in, tell them that you have a disability and you need to have this access card, because then once you do that, that takes care of entrance fees to national parks. It also gives you a discount on like camping, BLM land, and so forth. So make sure you get that. There is a charge for it if you order it through the website, just because of processing. But if you go to any national parks, then that's free. So it's called the Interagency Access Pass because it works for more than one agency. And they have different types of passes, but I would encourage you to get this one. Even if, let's say you're a senior citizen, you can get a senior citizen's pass, but you're going to pay for it. So if you're a senior citizen that also has a disability, now if you don't have a disability, you're not eligible for the Access Pass. But if you're a senior citizen and you qualify for the Access Pass, then get the Access Pass. Now, what documentation do I need to show for proof of eligibility? You have to have a valid ID. So you have to have a driver's license, passport, some kind of state issued ID, and you got to have the documentation of a permanent disability. So you can have a statement from a licensed physician scribbled out on a notepad, or a document that's issued from a state agency like Social Security disability income, Supplemental Security income, Veterans Administration, or you can have a document from someone like vocational rehab. And again, you can get it at any federal recreation site or online. So I'm going to go over here to get a pass online so that we can see what the current charge is. And that's for processing. Let's go on add product cart. Yes, I got that. And that just goes over what I just said about the information that you're going to need. So, I just want to know how much it is for the website, through the website. Because there is a little bit of a processing charge, but again, I can't get in. It's like around $10. It's not bad. So I would really strongly encourage you to get that. The other thing that the Interagency Pass does for you is, remember the state park discount that I mentioned? You can use that to prove your disability because a lot of state parks don't take the hang tag for your vehicle as proof that you have a disability, and they don't do that because they can be switched from car to car. Now, the Great Smoky Mountains National Park is a little different in that they charge a parking fee, but you don't have to pay that if you have the hang tag. You don't even have to stop and get one. Just make sure the hang tag is hanging on the car. This is where calling ahead of time to verify some information is really important. Also, when you go for discounts, you can use that card. So let's say you go to, let's pick a place. We already know that national parks give the discount, but the state park that I mentioned earlier, you can show that access card because they know that the National Park Service has already verified that you have a disability. So there you go. So consider how much time and look and see if you can get that disability access card. When you go to a national park or a state park or a zoo or an aquarium, you can ask when you get there roughly how much time is the average visit. And if you have a mobility disability, you can ask how long do they think it usually takes somebody that has a disability like yours to go through it. If you can't call ahead of time, calling ahead of time is always best, okay? But if you can't, ask when you get there. And the reason you want to check on this is because you need to know roughly how much time you're going to spend, because If you go to an aquarium, for example, and you have dinner reservations, you don't want to miss those. So just ask. It's really easy. Don't worry about that. They get asked things like that all the time. When you're booking your trip and you're planning your itinerary, keep your needs in mind, okay? We've already talked a little bit about how to keep up with time and check that, but you also want to keep your needs in mind that you may get a little extra tired when you're on a road trip, and that's fine. Just allow for extra sitting time. That will relieve so much stress. You have no idea, unless you have been there, how much stress that you can be under when you're on a trip trying to have fun and your legs hurt because you're not using a mobility scooter and you could have, or rented a wheelchair and you could have, so you're getting extra tired, you're getting extra hot, your blood sugar starts dropping. All of those factor in. So when you're looking at a whole trip, just kind of think about that. For me, I always pack snacks because I have blood sugar issues, because I have diabetes. And the blood sugar issues, I don't really have problems with it going high. I have problems with it going low. So taking the snack is a really big deal. And I make sure I always take crackers in addition to a little piece of candy to help bring that up. You can get diabetic tablets, whatever you feel like you need to do. But I try to put some protein with it. And I try to take enough in my purse so someone else on the trip can also have a snack. That, again, cuts your stress big time. Just knowing that you have it. Also, if you're a person that has to have decaffeinated tea or some other kind of special beverage, take it with you. Take your tea bags with you. Don't rely on restaurants to have the decaffeinated tea, because they often don't. So take your own. If there is a special artificial sweetener that you like, take it with you. Don't rely on restaurants to have it. Restaurants often have most of the things that you need, but if it's something that you have to have, don't rely on them. Okay? Take it with you, especially if it's tea. It's real easy to throw a couple of these in a bag. Okay? And of course, a container. I always take a container with a lid if I'm traveling, but if I'm doing a live stream, I use my mug. There you go. So, and as we go through this, I'm interested in your questions. So drop any questions that you may have down in the chat or later down in the comments section. Now, medications. We're going to talk about those for a minute. Whether you are on a road trip or not, you want to make sure you take your medications with you, and always, always, always take more than you think you're going to need, and take them in the actual prescription containers whenever possible. Now, something like an asthma inhaler, you may not be able to take it in the original container because the box gets smushed. Try to get a written prescription if you can, just to show that this is yours, because these are being abused. And so you don't want to take a chance on somebody saying that you're abusing a medication when you're not, because believe me, it happens. Let's just say that. So whatever medicine you need, take extra with you. If you are having to be careful about your immune system, you're probably going to take a mask. But something you probably haven't thought about is taking your own soap. I know this sounds a little bit weird for a lot of people, but if you have an immune system that's kind of questionable, take your own soap. I like these soap sheets. There you go. I get them on Amazon. They're in my Amazon store and have a plastic container. It just snaps shut. Throw it in your pocket, throw it in your backpack, your purse. It's a real easy thing to take with you. And I like this. I also have hand sanitizer, but I like this better because I like to be able to wash my hands. I also have these things in this little pouch. Along with these things being in my pouch, I have a medication list. I also leave one of these with my itinerary with somebody at home. So when I go out, my medication list has my name, address, phone number, my contact person's name, address, and phone number, my doctor's name, address, and phone numbers for all of my doctors, and I have a few specialists, so they're all on here. And I have my medications, the dosages, the time of day that I take them, any vitamins that I'm taking, and medicines that I take, PRN, which means as needed. That way, if something happens and I can't talk or I get rattled, I do get rattled sometimes, and I can't think of anything, then all I have to do is say, oh yeah, I've got this pouch. Try not to use a black pouch. This, I know, don't laugh. Try not to use a black pouch because so many things that we have are black that it just blends in. Being a color, especially if you can get kind of a bright color or kind of a light color, having the color makes it easier to spot and grab. All right? So do that. I can't stress that enough. Also, when you are traveling, I like to keep my medicines in a clear container. That way, you can spot them really easy. And there's no guessing. So if somebody was to try to help me, and I had a car accident and somebody was trying to help me or something like that, then I could say my medicines are in the back. They could see them immediately, grab them. EMS could take them with me. Now, this is in addition to my list. The other thing that I suggest that you talk to your doctor about is some nausea medication. And if you can take motion sickness medicine with you, I take Dramamine. This is really helpful if you start to get a stomach ache because you're off schedule or eating different foods, or because you're just motion sick from being in the car so much. If you're on a road trip or an airline, then you're covered. You don't have to worry about that. Also, anti-diarrheal medication, just in case. Now, chances are you're probably not going to need those, but you might. And it's better to be prepared than to find out you need it and can't find it. Same thing with some, and I've even had to use one of these on my last trip. I had indigestion medication, if you can take it. And that's why you want to talk with your doctor. Another thing when you're looking at how to plan a vacation for somebody who has a disability is a lot of us have these smartwatches. But do you know what? These smartwatches can be a real pain when you're traveling because sometimes your cell phone won't update to the current time. Been there, done that. So take an analog watch. Let this help keep you on track for your time zone at home. So if you have medications that you have to take at like 8 in the morning at home, an analog watch, one glance at it can tell you it's time to take your medicines or it's time to take a meal if you have to eat a meal on a certain schedule. When I went to Alaska last summer, my cell phone was terrible at updating when I went through Canada and hitting the towers accurately, and even in parts of Alaska. But I have a medication I have to take at 7 a.m., so I could just glance at my analog watch and know exactly what time it is, which keeps me on a more even keel when I'm traveling, which is huge. If you have diabetes, being on a schedule makes a lot of difference. But let's say you have Asperger's and you need to keep that same schedule. An analog watch is a really cheap, easy way to do that. So keep it on your wrist or in your bag, someplace where you can see it easily. And you may want to get an analog alarm clock even to take with you. Joanne is here. Hey, it's good to see you. And if you have any suggestions, I want you to definitely add those into the chat, please. I would like to see them because we all travel with different disabilities. Now, planning your trip, I want to go back to talking about keeping notes in a journal. This has helped me avoid having to be around strobes because I have epilepsy, courtesy of the head injury. I went to a national park film. It was a dark room, and the film didn't have a strobe, but it had this one section where the vehicle was traveling through or next to a forest. The light was shining through it. It was real pretty. But as the person drove through, it gave me this strobe-like effect. Now, I didn't know it at the time, and I could pull out my sunglasses. Another big thing that I always try to carry with me, I could put those on, and I could still remain in the room during the time that flashing light was going on. Now, I have a friend who has children on the Asperger spectrum, and one of them can't do flashing lights. And she was able to avoid that at the national park because I had the notes. And so when I found out she was going, I could say, hey, by the way, I think I have it in my notes, so let me go back and check. And I'm not going to name the national park because they have since changed that film. Or I shouldn't say film, that does date me. How about I say video? Okay, I'll get back up to the 20th century, right? And then move on to the 21st. So those are a few things to keep in mind. Let's see, Joanne has, sure, since I travel with my son, who is autistic and nonverbal, I forgot about that. It's definitely important to have what we need. And she says, great idea. Now, I'll tell you also, a friend of mine has 3 kids that are on the spectrum, ranging from absolutely incredibly brilliant to nonverbal. When she came over a few years ago, we were talking ahead of time, and I met her at Walt Disney World because she told me if she lost her kids in the park, she knew security would help her. When she was out at Disney Springs, it's a collection of shops and restaurants and just lots of really cool things. But she didn't have security there that she could just go to and say, hey, watch at the exits, make sure my son doesn't escape from me and help me find him. So I went down there and I was able to see her and help with her kids. The other thing, from having a child who is now an adult, who liked to wander, is before you go into a park or any place where you might get separated, take a photo of your child. So that way you can remember that the child is wearing a lime green shirt and black pants and a navy blue ball cap or whatever. Because when you lose somebody and you are trying to remember what they wear, you have all this stress and anxiety, and you've got that photo. And if you want to make it to where the kids just think it's a fun part of the day, you can take their photo with them standing next to an attraction, and they'll just go, "Oh, my parents have the camera out again," and roll their eyes. So, but take a photo. Also, you may want to do it even if you have adults with you, because I know my husband and I are notorious for getting separated. And that helps too, because I can go up to an employee and say, "Hey, have you seen somebody in a UT ball cap that looks like this?" And they can say, "Oh, yeah, he's standing right there," or whatever. And Joanne is saying that she takes one daily for that very reason, and he always has my number attached to him. I'm going to pause here for just a second and make sure everybody that sees this, whether now or later, will see this tip. She takes one daily for that very reason, and he always has her number. So that's a big deal. Okay. Also, speaking of phone numbers, I suggested putting the medications in a brighter colored bag. If you have a child that's got a backpack, take a bright colored sheet of paper or a bright colored envelope, write on there your name, your number, your address, and anybody's information that you want to have on there, just in case, let's say, heaven forbid, there's an accident or whatever, and you need it, you'll have it. Your child will have it. I was in a situation with my family where I almost had people at two different hospitals. And if that had happened, then they had information that they could go on to call the next person on the list. We were able to work it out with me kind of throwing we were able to work it out where they all went to the same hospital. Otherwise, they would have been separated. So putting that, again, using bright colors, really super helpful. So you can tell somebody, "Hey, look for the large pink envelope or the large green sheet of paper that's in the backpack or diaper bag." My asthma kit here is what we call this. And I can say, "I'm having trouble breathing. Please get green bag." So one of the things that I have, okay, and Joanne's saying, yes, we've also used temporary tattoos with our info in case either of my boys get lost or separated from us. That is a great idea. I'm going to write that down. I didn't ever think about that. Where do you get the temporary tattoos? Can you share that? Because that's a marvelous, marvelous idea. So let me know where you got those so we can share that idea, or that source rather. Also, if you are traveling with someone who is hard of hearing or visually impaired, talk to that person and find out. Thank you, Joanne. That would be awesome. So she's going to send me the information, you all, because that's a great tip. So let's say you're traveling with somebody who's hard of hearing or visually impaired. Talk to them about what they need. You may want to also then pack bright colored shirts for yourself, so the person who's visually impaired may have an easier time spotting you in case they need something. let's say they go to a gift shop or whatever, and you're looking at two different things, a bright color shirt may help them find you. That's what we do with my girlfriend when we go out some places and we've ditched the husband and spending, the girls' day. Huge, huge help to her. And it's a small, easy thing for me to do, So that helps. So leading your itinerary, checking disability-friendly places, looking for discounts, taking your notes, and then putting them in a Google Drive document, because you always have that Google Drive document. I always do that. Now with me, I travel with a service dog who is an enormous blessing. So those of you who are traveling with service dogs, you have some special things to consider, and I'm going to do a whole live stream on that a little bit later. But let me just say, make sure you have what you need: food, medicines, toys, harness, vest, anything that you normally need for your service dog. Make sure you have that. Also, get a domestic health certificate from your vet. Now, I don't care whether you actually think you're going to need it or not. A lot of vets will do this for free, and it's got information on it that if he was to get sick or whatever, you could just hand over that health certificate. Or if you're in an area where somebody questions you about it, somebody official, then you can give them that health certificate. I also like to make sure I have a copy of his records. And we use Banfield. They're awesome. And I can go online through the Banfield app if I need to look something up and get more information. But I also carry a copy of the ADA service dog law that I can pull out at any time if I need it. And hotels are really interesting because some of them have given me a challenge. The denial of access that I had actually at the National Institutes of Health escalated to the Department of Justice, and they backed me. But it also helped to have that law in my hand so I can say I showed it to them, and they knew they weren't supposed to deny me. So always have that. Again, that's a simple thing. Again, put it in something bright colored so you can find it. And when I'm traveling, I tend to have several of these in the same bright colored envelope so I can find it at a glance. Also with my service dog, he is trained. You can see where this has been chewed on a little bit. He is trained to go get this for me. And if it's in my backpack, he can nose that backpack open and get this for me. So all I have to say is inhaler, and he goes. He knows to do that. If you see a service dog walking around by itself with a vest that says service dog or a mobility harness, ask the dog. Most people have their dogs trained to show me or take me. Where's your person? Show me. Because if they're wandering around without a person holding onto them, there's a problem and the person needs you. And when the dog gets there, if they're wearing a vest with a pocket on it, it's a safe bet that pocket has treats. So give them a couple of treats from the vest. Don't give them food. Don't give them food. That causes an enormous array of problems. So check that. So real quick, also, I want to talk about flights, because there are some things with flights that people don't know about, and it's very helpful. So when you book your flight, depending on how far out you are, contact the TSA, because you've often got extra medicines to take. You may have medical equipment to take, whether it's a CPAP or asthma medications or anything that's out of the ordinary, you can get a program support specialist, and they will come and meet you at the top of the line. They will take you over through the metal detectors and walk you through the entire process. It's called a program specialist, and you don't have to have any kind of mobility disability. This is so you can, if you get confused, if you have any kind of processing issues, head injury, stuff like that, that's what they're for, and they are amazing. Last time I had a TSA passenger, it's a passenger support specialist, and last time I had it, it made life so much easier because when I got there, I had my medicines. I've got a leg brace. They have to do all these extra things with me, and I was able to have them meet me at the top of the line. They helped me through the metal detector, or X-ray machine, which is a big deal for me because when I take my shoe off, I can't walk that well. And they were able to wand me, and I stepped through it, and then we went off to the side. They went through my medications at a glance. They even helped me with the bins that I put my things in. And I was having to repack my bag, and the passenger support specialist said, "I'll help you with the bins. Just leave them on that bench right there. I'll get them and put them up. You don't even have to bring them back over to me. Don't worry about it." That was an enormous help. The other thing that some people don't know about is when you book your tickets, you can call the airline and ask for transportation help. And they will meet you at the gate. They will help you onto the plane if you need it. When you get off the plane, they will take you to baggage claim or to your connection, whatever you need. The other thing that you can do is you can ask when you get to the gate, if you're flying in, or if you have a child flying that needs support, you can ask at the gate and see if they will let you go through the TSA checkpoint. Or if you are going with somebody who has a mobility problem, you can ask when you get to the gate. They can work it out with the TSA. Case in point, I was flying on a family emergency 2 years ago almost. My granddaughter was born at 25 weeks instead of 40. She was a little impatient, kind of like her mother. And I was making an emergency flight out. We got to the gate. We'd asked for transportation, and the gate attendant says, "Ms. Crabtree, I am so sorry. We don't have anybody that can transport you to the TSA checkpoint." And I'm like, "Okay." And he says, "I see you have a mobility issue because I've got the leg brace on." And I'm like, "Yep." And I'm like, "I'll figure something out. Don't worry about it." And in the back of my mind, I'm going, "Oh my gosh, I don't walk quickly. How am I going to manage all of this?" The agent, after about a minute on the phone, he looks over to my husband and says, "If you don't mind transporting her yourself, we can clear this with the TSA. I need a copy of your license. You can go straight to the gate with her." I didn't know until that point. Now, it's not always possible that they can do that, he said, but it's worth a shot, right? You can always ask. The other thing is a lot of airports, you can download a map to get familiar with it before you go. That can help ease some of your anxiety. So, looking at the map before you go, checking with the agent can be a huge help. The passenger support person from the TSA can be a big help, and transportation is huge. When you go to the airport, though, there are at some airports airport parking that you can get that has a shuttle that can pick you up at your car. Sometimes you have to call for it. Sometimes they're continually circulating. For a person with a mobility issue, that was huge, okay? Huge help. So check on that. The other thing about the TSA, they have a notification card for people who have disabilities, okay? This is not well advertised, and that part stinks because they need to get the information out more. But you can go online, just do a search, TSA notification card. You print it out yourself. As you go through the TSA checkpoint, you can put this on your luggage as they scan it, and it lets the TSA person know, hey, this is a person who has a disability, so that they can slow down a little bit if they need to. Now, this is for, I'm very open. Hey, I got a leg brace here, okay? Wand me, I may need some help, blah, blah, blah. I'm a big mouth. I'm very open about it, but not everybody is open that has a disability. So this is an easy way to let the TSA know. And it's free, it's easy to put out, and it really only takes a second. It's got the phone number of TSA Cares on the back, so you can call ahead of time and arrange for that program support specialist. And then on the front, you type in what some of your disabilities are. Now, I dropped mine, and it took my dog a few tries to pick it up. So you may want to laminate yours. I'm going to laminate my next one. But this can be super, super helpful. Now, I was in between service dogs on my last trip that I flew. The one thing that I had with me, because we were out of town when we got the call, so I had no clothes or anything. The one thing that I had with me was my notification card because I had it stuck in my billfold. So when you get it, you can just stick it in your billfold. Also, you can, if you want to type in your name, if there's space. I didn't have that much space on the line, but you can also, I understand from somebody else, use this to prove disability when they needed or wanted a discount at the state park and they had forgotten their national park access card. That, I'm telling you, that national park access card is huge. And Joanne says, really helpful information. We haven't tried flying with Michael yet. We're a little nervous, to be honest with you. I totally understand. Totally understand. But if you do decide to sometime, hopefully some of this will be helpful. I know for me, having that program support specialist was huge. With my head injury, I do get turned around easily. One of the things that my service dog is trained to do is I can tell him, find out, and he can take me to a door. So even if I wind up not going through the door, I've found it, and there's usually space around a door where you can stand there for a minute and just catch your breath and kind of catch up with what's going on. Also, sometimes there are benches near a door, which can be really helpful too. So maybe that'll help a little bit. So with flights, I strongly suggest that. Also, On the medicines, okay, let me go back to this. When you're traveling, take them in the original prescription bottles. Now, I know you're going, but I like to do my 7-day medicine planner, or I like to try to get them in little bags from the pharmacy. Lovely. I'm great. That's great. I'm glad you do that, but don't just take them in your 7-day planner. And I wouldn't suggest trying to get them in little plastic bags from the pharmacy, even with the stickers on them, because you may need more than what they'll give you. Some states, though, when you're traveling, some states will require that your prescriptions be in the original bottles. So that's why I'm saying leave them in there. If you want to do a 7-day plan, great. Okay, I'm not saying don't do it, but take your prescription bottles with you anyway, because some states do require it. Last time I flew to Alaska, my girlfriend and my daughter that went with me got so frustrated with me because I made this great big pouch so I could just kind of unfurl it with all of my medicines in it. And it took up a lot of space in my suitcase. And they're like, you don't have to do that. Just take your medicines in its little container. And I said, I can't do that because some places require the original containers. Also, when you're flying, things happen. So if you're flying over another country, for example, flying to Alaska, you go over part of Canada. If the plane had to go down for any reason, make an unscheduled landing in Canada, your prescriptions are in the actual case. You're not having to explain to customs what this bunch of pills are. It's not that big of a deal to take them in the case, so definitely do that. Now, if you have to take like diabetic medication and it has to stay cool, when you get to your hotel or whatever, hopefully you've arranged for a refrigerator. Call ahead. Not every hotel has them, all right? So call ahead and make sure. Someplace like Walt Disney World, you got to make special arrangements for some of the rooms. My strong advice is to keep that in your cooler or whatever your tote bag, whatever you use. Keep that in your bag before you use the refrigerator in your room. Case in point, sometimes those refrigerators get set for the wrong temperature or they go bad and they can actually freeze your medicine. Been there, done that, had that happen. I was left at the Grand Canyon trying to figure out what I was going to do. I was on insulin at the time. It was a big, big problem, okay? So wait until you've checked the refrigerator. Put a cup, I always suggest taking a little cup of water and tearing it down till it's about, that high. Stick it in the refrigerator. Give it a while, hour, 2 hours, whatever you want to, and just make sure there's not any ice forming before you put your meds in it. Also, don't put your meds next to the freezer compartment of the refrigerator because the refrigerator, if you put it right there, it freezes everything that's next to the freezer compartment. So watch for that too. Just take the extra little time to do that. So I hope that this has been helpful. Traveling when you have a disability is possible for most people. Very rarely will you have somebody that can't travel. Okay, so make a plan like we're talking about today. Make your plan, choose your destination, and have fun. And always, always, always take a bigger memory card than you think you're going to need, okay, for lots and lots of photos. Chasing 28, Smith 12. Hi, how are you? It is good to see you. It is good to see you. So do that. One of the things I really like the best, next to my National Park Access card, if I'm going to national parks, is my notebook. And then I go in and add it all in Google Drive. You can go, if you take a photo, one quick tip for your notebook. If you take a photo of all your chicken scratching, you can either put that photo in Google Drive itself, or I like to go on my phone, pull it up. Let me try to get my little photo up here with words on it. Pull it up, go into Edit or Lens, copy text, and you can copy and paste that text right into your Google Drive document. It literally takes about 2 minutes to do that, including opening your app. So, all right. So thank you all. Thank you all very much for coming out. I appreciate seeing you. I'm glad it's been helpful. And if you ever have any questions, leave me a comment, drop them down below. I'm glad to answer. Sometimes it does take me a couple of days because I'm slow, but I will do my best to answer. One more thing I have a note about, and that is when you go on a trip, dress in layers. That way, if you're too hot, you can peel a jacket off, peel your overshirt off, and it's a lot easier. And you also have those things to put back on if you need them. So, all right, you all. Thanks for watching. Everybody go out. Remember, on this channel, it's the hashtag Be Bodacious, which means you're not going to let life get in the way of living. So go travel, go have fun, and I'll see you on the next video. Bye, y'all.